afternoon, everyone. My name is Shachar Sadeh. I'm the director of the Faculty Engagement Program at the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York. It's an honor to welcome you all to our today's conference call briefing with two brilliant speakers, Shikaki and Hermann, who will be discussing Israel and the Palestinian public opinion in times of coronavirus. Before we start, I want to very briefly tell you about JCRC New York Faculty Engagement Program, which is a part of our Commission of Israel and International Affairs, which strives to build bridges between New Yorkers and Israel. The Faculty Engagement Program was launched 5 years ago and promotes discussions about Israel among college and university faculty in New York metropolitan area. We do it by providing different opportunities to engage with scholars from the region. Usually we do it in person, but nowadays via Zoom, by taking New York-based faculty members to tour and study Israel and the Palestinian territories, and by other more academic type of engagements such as courses and seminars. Since its inception, the program has engaged over 900 New York City-based faculty members in its various activities and created a network of individuals willing to be part of these important discussions. One of the university centers we've been in close collaboration with and is a co-sponsor of today's talk is CERU at Queens College, which is part of CUNY, the City University of New York, and you'll hear about it in a minute from its wonderful director, Professor Sophia McGee. Today's debrief will be carried out as follows. I will turn the mic to Sophia McGee, who will introduce our speakers. Then we'll hear a 12-minute debrief from Professor Hermann about the Israeli public opinion, followed by a 12-minute debrief by Professor Shikaki on the Palestinian public opinion, and then we'll open the floor to Q&A session. Tens of you have already sent us wonderful questions, and I'm sure some of you will have questions as we go, and you're welcome to send us more questions through the chat option here at the Zoom. And please choose the host to send the question to, and please keep them brief and in the question format. Sophia McGee, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank Dr. Shachar Sadeh and the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York for giving me the opportunity to co-host this extremely important debrief today. Thank you also to Director Michael Miller, to Rabbi Bob Kaplan, who serves on the Center for Ethnic, Racial, and Religious Understandings Advisory Board. As Dr. Sadeh said, my name is Sophia Salguero McGee, and I am the director of the Center for Ethnic, Racial, and Religious Understanding at Queens College, more commonly known as CERU. Since nobody can say the Center for Ethnic, Racial, and Religious Understanding, it's too much to say. I am also an alumni of the Faculty Engagement Program run by Dr. Sadeh, and that has started a really wonderful kind of period of collaboration between the two of us, which I'm very excited, continues. Queens College is a senior college that is part of the City University of New York system. It is an exceptionally diverse institution. Students hail from over 190 different countries and speak about 140 different languages on campus when we are able, obviously, to convene on campus. CERU trains individuals across all of this difference in order to transform difficult challenges that are affecting all of us on campus, from faculty to students to staff to the administration and the campus community. We center equity as a major value and work through a diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI lens. Queens College is our home campus, but we have recently been tasked by the New York City Council, Speaker Corey Johnson, and the Chancellor of CUNY to work on issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion more systemically throughout the CUNY system. We've been very honored to be part of this unique collaboration, which includes government officials, senior administration at CUNY, and of course us, a small grassroots organization at Queens College. Okay, so enough about me, let's get this program started. Today, I have the honor of introducing Dr. Tamar Hermann and Dr. Khalil Shikaki, our two experts who will be giving us a very current snapshot of public opinion in Israel-Palestine on a number of issues. Dr. Khalil Shikaki is a professor of political science and the director of the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research, the PCPSR, located in Ramallah in Palestine. He is also a senior fellow at the Crown Center for Middle East Studies at Brandeis University. Dr. Shikaki's work has focused on the peace process, Palestinian state building, public opinion, transition to democracy, and the impact of domestic Palestinian politics on the peace process. Dr. Tamar S. Hermann is a professor of political science at the Open University in Israel. In addition, she is the academic director of the Gutman Center for Surveys at the Israel Democracy Institute. Dr. Hermann has co-edited the annual Israeli Democracy Index since 2010. Dr. Hermann's research focuses on Israeli public opinion, specifically as it pertains to issues related to national security and Israel's socio-economic agenda. Welcome to both of you. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And I believe that we are starting with Dr. Hermann.
Hi, everyone. I have only 12 minutes in order to run with you through the various aspects of the Corona days in Israel. So I will not take questions during the presentation, and I will not expand on each of the topics that I'm going to touch upon, but of course I'm open to questions later on. So I'll start with some general background of Israel as of today, very, very short. Then I'll talk about the actually triple crisis that we are experiencing these days, the political, the economic, and of course the medical crisis. I will also touch upon some aspects of Israelis' feelings about the government, and then I'll move and discuss the Israeli-Palestinian relations against the background of the Corona crisis. Okay, so can you see this? Yeah. Okay. So I see all the pictures covering my own presentation, so that's a bit of a problem. Jennifer, can you help me with that? Every person that is entering is covering my presentation. I'll try to do something about it, but I'm not sure. Anyway, some background: a triple crisis, political, medical, and economic, domestic implications of the Corona pandemic, Israeli-Palestinian relations in the context of the pandemic. What you see here are the results of questions that we repeat every month, and we try to figure out to which extent people in Israel are optimistic regarding the future of Israeli democracy and Israeli national security. What you see here are the results of a total sample, bringing on board both Jews and Arabs of all ages, a representative national sample. And what you see here is that when we started looking at these two questions in April 2019, the results were pretty close. I mean, people were optimistic about the same extent about the future of Israeli democracy and its national security situation. However, through the following month, what you can see is that the discrepancy or the gap between the two lines is widening, with the optimism regarding Israeli democracy going down. Mid-March, we had like only 1/3 of the Israelis actually being optimistic about the future of the democratic regime in Israel, whereas the stability of the optimism regarding Israeli national security is much, much higher. So people are quite satisfied, you'll see it in a minute, with the security in terms of military security, not what we call soft component of security, but the optimism regarding the democratic nature of Israel are going down. Here again, we looked at it from a different perspective. We asked to which extent the state of Israel ensures the security or the welfare of its citizens. And as you can see, people are much more satisfied with the security delivered to them by the government, as opposed to a minority that is satisfied with the well-being that is being delivered to them by the government. And this issue is, of course, relevant to the Corona days, because people are not afraid of what's going on along the borders, but they are very much afraid, and actually they are very frustrated with the way that the state is dealing with their welfare. We now have jumped from 3.5% unemployment before the Corona crisis started to 27% as of now. In 1 month and a half, the increase was over 25%, okay? And the response of the government to the concerns of the people on the welfare issue is quite bad, and people see it as a very severe malfunctioning on behalf of the state. Security is guaranteed. Then we looked at another perspective, and we asked about, is Israel democracy in grave danger? The average here means nothing, because when we actually split the answers or segmented the answers by the political blocs of the Jews, because the Arabs are on different terms with this issue, you see that on the left, by the way, is about 15% of the Israeli Jewish population, self-identification that is. Over 80% think that Israeli democracy is in a grave danger, okay? At the center, it's about 66, 67%, 2/3, and on the right, only 37%. So the differences between the political blocs in assessing the situation, the democratic situation in Israel, are huge. And what's more important, when we try to figure out why do the people of the left think that Israel is in such danger regarding its democracy, the main answer was, for example, the dismal situation of the judicial system, because people on the left think that the government is trying actually to dissolve the judicial system either directly or indirectly, to really put it down and change the balance of power between the three branches of government. Whereas when we asked the people of the right, this 1/3 who said that the situation is grave, they said that they see things this way because the judicial system is too strong and actually standing in the way of the administration and the Knesset, the parliament, in doing its job properly. So actually they have antithetical explanation for the view that the democracy is in bad shape. Then when the Corona crisis started, and there were severe limitations on individual rights, the lockdown, and so on and so forth. The fact that the Shin Bet is actually listening to our cell phones in order to figure out where we are, and so on and so forth. We ask people to which extent they think that we should be more careful or more on guard that the government doesn't exploit the crisis to harm, to do harm to the democracy. And here again, you see the huge differences between the three political blocs. In other words, what I'm trying to show you is that people of the majority group in Israel, the Jewish majority, it is deeply split or divided on very critical issues. We hardly have any national consensus anymore on the basics of the political system operation, and therefore it's very, very difficult to satisfy all. Whatever the government does, the right may like it, the left may not like it, the center is in between depending on which issue. But such a split public, I think that it is something that you are familiar with in the US as well, between Democrats and of course Republicans. We are divided into three, and we also have the Arab minority, which have a totally different view on these issues. But with such a deep gaps between the groups, it's very difficult to mobilize the public into doing something that may last for a longer period of time to agree upon. Okay? Now about fears, because people are very fearful these days, and what we realized that the resilience of Israeli public is extremely high. It's unbelievably high because we are used to have crises all the time, every 2 years. We have a military campaign, we have some boycotts from the international community, we have terror attacks, we have this and that, and changes in the American government, and so on and so forth. So we realized that the fear was at peak on mid-March, and then it started to decline on all issues. I mean, people just got used to the situation, to staying at home, working at home, from using Zoom, for example, for not seeing family members, and so on and so forth. It seems that the Israeli public is very flexible and accommodating, and they can really live with the present situation, particularly as the death toll is quite low. Thus far, we have 202 people, dead people with the average age is now 82, so this is the older age cohort. So mid-February, we have 1/3 that were fearful of getting infected. Mid-March, we had 3/4, and late March, third week of March, we already had 61% and going down. Okay, now we asked about the economic future, because the economic situation in Israel is quite bad. As I said, 27% unemployed, and people didn't get any salaries. Many people were sent home for live without pay, and so on. And then again, you see the same phenomena. This is early March. Mid-March, we jumped to almost 70% fearful, and since then, we see a decline in the number of those fearing for the economic future, 65%, 57%, 55%. So the same trend about getting infected, about fear of the economic future, and it will go down because as of today, many more businesses are open. Sunday kindergartens and schools will be partly open, and so on and so forth. So now to the Palestinian issue, because time is running out. We asked in December about plans that will include recognition of a Palestinian state. Again, see how different the views on this issue, that Israel should or shouldn't agree to that. On the right, only 1/3 think that in any context, be it the deal of the century, be it any other peace plan, Israel should agree to have a recognition of an independent Palestinian state. At the center, 2/3, at the left, 80. It is just amazing that the differences on the different issues are almost the same, regardless of the topic of the question. It only tells you that people are, the cleavages are so deep, and they are all-encompassing, and the differences are stable. It is not per topic, it is per political bloc. Then 3 months ago, we asked who would manage the negotiations with the Palestinian better, Netanyahu or Gantz? Because there was a question, who's going to be the prime minister and then, of course, negotiate with the Palestinians. On the right, very large majority, like 3/4 said Netanyahu. At the center, 18%, 40% said Gantz, and on the left, only 10% said Netanyahu, but one third said to the same extent, both to the same extent. This means that even amongst his people, Gantz did not have a majority of those stating clearly that he'll be a better negotiator on behalf of Israel with the Palestinians. Okay, so Netanyahu is there, and if you take into account that the right is now about 60% of the Israeli Jewish majority group, and for sure Netanyahu have a much more stable mandate to negotiate with the Palestinians than Gantz. Now, these questions were asked 3 days ago, and Thursday, and we asked the extent to which Israel should assist the Palestinian authorities in dealing with the coronavirus epidemic or pandemic in the areas under their control. And as you can see, there are about 46% of the Jews who say, yes, we should help them, a majority amongst the Israeli Arabs, okay? Whereas actually the Jewish public is split almost in the middle. 48 say, no, we shouldn't assist them, only 5% of the Arabs. Now we segmented this question, or the answers to this question, by people's level of religiosity, because level of religiosity is the best explaining or explanatory factor in Israeli politics. So amongst the secular, you can see that we had like 53% saying, yes, Israel should help. But look about among the ultra-Orthodox, 1/4 only, a small minority. And amongst the religious, also a minority. And among the traditional non-religious, also a minority. So only the secular, or now 43%, by the way, of the Israeli public, they think that we should assist the Palestinian Authority. But now we asked another question, and here we were shocked to realize. We asked whether Israel should support and giving humanitarian aid to Gaza and to Hamas to treat the coronavirus. And we said in exchange for Hamas agreeing to a deal regarding the Israeli soldiers missing in action and hostages held by Hamas. And you see, great majority, large majority amongst Jews saying yes. Same goes with Arabs. But the explanation for that is that this is not a really humanitarian aid that they have in mind. What they are having is doing a deal. And Hamas has something to offer Israel. And therefore Israelis are ready, Israeli Jews are ready to negotiate and give them some humanitarian aid, not because they need it, not because of the epidemic, not because people are afraid that from Gaza it can come to Israel, but because they have something with which they can pay, quote unquote, for this humanitarian aid. And this is my last slide. The same we did with the level of religiosity. And here the similarity is amazing, amazing. Almost no differences between secular, traditional, non-religious, traditional, religious, and ultra-Orthodox. Over 60% say yes, give Hamas humanitarian aid and give us back the soldiers missing in action and the Israeli hostages. Again, what we see here is that the Jewish tradition of paying dearly in order to release people that are taken hostage or whatever is very, very prominent in Israeli political culture to this very day. I'm done.
Thank you, Tamar. Khalil, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shaka. My presentation today is looking at how Palestinians responded during the Corona crisis. A lot of issues are important in terms because they contradict our findings for the last 10 years. One is about the domestic environment, and the other is about the relations with the State of Israel. My presentation will look at these two issues: the domestic environment. The domestic environment has been characterized by a great deal of discontent. Israeli-Palestinian relations have been characterized by gradual deterioration in terms of public perception, willingness to compromise, etc.
Until we get a hold back on Khalil, Tamar, I suggest if you want to say a word about changes in public opinion among Israeli Arabs or Palestinian citizens of Israel during these times while we fix the technical issues.
Okay. What we see is something very, very interesting. The crisis actually made Israeli Jews and Arabs getting closer. They are closer these days because they spend time together in hospitals, they cooperate on a wide variety of issues. Some of the Arab municipalities even ask the police and the IDF to come in order to help them control the lockdown and so on and so forth. So on the societal level, we see a very major improvement. We ran a survey, as I said, on Thursday, and we asked also the Jews, but also the Arab respondents, to which extent do they feel part of the state and its problems? Whereas in the past, normally was under 50%, like 40, 45, in very bad days was 1/3. Now we found over 68% of the Israeli Arabs, of the sample of course, saying that they feel part of the state and its problems. So the problem of the corona problem, brought together Israeli Jews and Arabs on the societal level. This doesn't mean that on the political level, both sides will agree more on issues like is the state more, or should it be more Jewish or more democratic, and so on and so forth. But if the Israeli government is clever, they would use this new proximity as a vehicle in order to create better relations and much higher cooperation in the future, because it only showed so many people in Israel were not aware of the possibility of really joining forces in fighting something else, not an Arab country, not an Arab Palestinian organization, not some international bodies, but joining forces in order to work together against something that is a threat to everyone. So this new experience is something very, very critical. If is properly used, it can really stay here for many years to go.
Okay. Sophia, do you have any questions so far to Tamar while we wait for Khalil to get back online?
I'm online.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Yeah.
I am online.
You are online. We can. Okay, now we can see you. Thanks for coming back. We're with you.
All right. So let me go back to the slides. I didn't realize I lost the connection. So with regard to the level of discontent that we see in Palestinian society, this data essentially covers the last several years, with the most important change that we saw during the last 2 months, indicating very positive perception of the Palestinian Authority. The level of trust in the Palestinian Authority has improved significantly, basically with the onset of the Corona crisis. The level of distrust that prevailed earlier, if you're able to see the slide, shows the last decade in which public opinion started to trust the government less and less. You see this in the entire area, but in the West Bank and Gaza as well, and in Gaza in particular. You can also see in the right-hand slide the demand for Abbas resignation during the last 5 years, somewhere between 60 to 70% year after year. And these are averages per year. This question was asked 4 times every year. And although in the latest surveys, we have not asked about Abbas's resignation, but clearly the trend is not positive. In terms of Israeli-Palestinian relations, our findings have shown a consistent decline in support for compromise for the two-state solution. 10 years ago, support was as high as 10%, and today support is less than 40%. Clearly, this is also true with regard to willingness to compromise comes to the various elements of a two-state solution. We have also seen a gradual increase in support for violence among Palestinians, although the majority still does not believe that resort to violence or armed struggle would be effective in ending the Israeli occupation. We see the overwhelming majority believing that the status quo, current status quo, is detrimental to the Palestinian goal of ending the Israeli occupation and building a state. Although Palestinians support international action and nonviolence as a response to the occupation, continued occupation, both strategies are seen as ineffective in ending the Israeli occupation. We also see a consensus in rejecting the Trump plan. This slide shows us what happened during, since 2011. So for 10 years, support for the two-state solution has been continuing to decline. What has been increasing is the support for the one-state solution. So if you look at where we are today in 2020, we're basically there. The level of support for the two-state solution and for a one-state solution is essentially the same. This slide shows the reaction to the Trump plan. We've been asking about the Trump plan as far back as December 18th. But in the past, when we asked about it, it was about people speculating about what the plan will be all about. Although the framing of the plan and of the entire administration was very negative for the Palestinians in the media and by the leadership, as you can see, 3/4 or so, on average, believe that the Palestinian leadership must reject the plan because the plan must be bad. Yet, when the plan was actually released and people were able to read and hear about the terms, the rejection of the plan jumped to 94%. So the plan turned out to be much worse than what people actually thought. Now, why? Well, none of the elements in the plan, when we broke down the elements of the plan to the public and asked about support for it, there was really no support, nothing at all for any of the elements, including the one that offered billions and billions of dollars. There was a rejection of that plan because it was conditioned on Palestinians endorsing the Trump plan. Is one reason that seems to be the most important in terms of bringing the Palestinian public to such a consensus, a rare development, and that is the perception that the plan does not end the Israeli occupation. This is one of the most important demands of the Palestinians. They're willing to make compromises, but the goal is to compromise if this leads to the end of Israeli occupation. When we ask the public, what are the chances that accepting the Trump plan would actually lead to the end of occupation? The overwhelming majority believe it was by almost 80, a little bit over 80% believe that the chances are less than 50%. A large majority believed it's a zero chance that it would end the Israeli occupation. Now,
Khalil, can you minimize the view on the side? We're not seeing your full presentation.
I actually don't know how to do that because I see that in front of me the full presentation is shown. Let me see if there's anything that I can do.
If on the place where you see the stack of video frames, maybe there's a minus sign to minimize it? If not, carry on.
I'm sorry, I'm not able to find that.
I suggest we go on.
Slide.
We have a few more minutes of the slides, and then we have a Q&A. All right.
All right. So let me. I'm about to end. The most important thing that we are concerned about in terms of public willingness to compromise is when people get to the point where they see the plan as leading to a development in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, that the conflict becomes existential. This is something that we have seen the Palestinian public moving away from more than 20 years ago. And now we see the perception that the plan would actually lead to such a situation. The reason for the concern is because when people do reach that level of pessimism about the relationship, their willingness to compromise goes down considerably. When we ask the public about its response, how we should respond, all the findings have indicated that people wanted the Palestinian leadership to take a very tough position ending the security coordination with Israel, for example, terminating Oslo. The most surprising part was about the spike in support for a return to struggle with 64%, believing that resorting to armed struggle would be one way to stop the Trump plan. The survey also showed that there has indeed been a significant increase in other questions with regard to support for violence. Now, we're not worried that this would be lasting, but as we'll be testing this in the future, but it is very worrying that this comes in the immediate aftermath of the US plan. One more issue that we see that is very worrying is about the impact on the domestic developments. The support for Abbas has dropped. It has dropped before that, but last year, actually, 2019 was a very good year on average for Abbas in terms of being able to defeat Hamas's leader, Ismail Haniyeh. Immediately after the plan, Abbas suffered a defeat in the competition with Haniyeh. Haniyeh's popularity increased significantly compared to that of Abbas. In conclusion, despite what we see in the most recent findings about the impact in terms of the impact of the corona crisis on the domestic environment and relations with Israel. On the domestic environment, the findings show that people are willing to trust the government a lot more than they have done at any time in the past. It is highly unlikely this will be lasting. The Palestinian elite remains the same elite. It's an authoritarian elite. Nonetheless, we do not expect any explosion against the Palestinian Authority. We do expect economic conditions to worsen considerably after the corona crisis. When the corona crisis is gone, we will have a major economic crisis at hand. Findings today do not indicate that this will lead to an explosion against the Palestinian Authority. The second conclusion is regarding the two-state solution. Yes, we do see, as I showed you in the slide, where the two lines are almost meeting, support for the one-state and the support for the two-state. Yet our surveys over the last 4 years have indicated that one can improve or increase the level of support for the two-state solution significantly by offering the public incentives to support it. The two-state solution remains, therefore, much more preferred by the public compared to the one-state solution. My third conclusion is that despite the improved conditions with regard to Israeli-Palestinian relations revealed by the latest survey regarding the corona crisis, the question was regarding cooperation, coordination between the two sides in dealing with the crisis. For the first time, we saw a two-third majority supporting such Israeli-Palestinian cooperation. In all previous surveys, particularly during the last 5 years, the support for any kind of cooperation was somewhere between a third to a quarter. To jump to a two-third majority is a significant improvement. This too is not lasting. As long as Israel continues to have a right-wing government that pursues right-wing policies, it is these policies that led in the past to the gradual decline in support for compromise. Finally, Abbas is threatening to do a lot of things in response to the deterioration in Israeli-Palestinian relations. It is highly unlikely that Abbas will do any major policy that would significantly destabilize Israeli-Palestinian relations, with one exception. If Israel starts with that, if Israel goes ahead with annexation, for example, this, I believe, would lead to a great deal of pressure from the public on Abbas to take significant steps that would indeed lead to significant destabilization. I'll stop here and thank you very much.
Thank you, Khalil and Tamar, for this intriguing presentation. We'll start with the Q&A, and everyone on the call, you can still write us more questions using the chat option. I'll turn to Sophia McGee to ask the first question. Sophia.
Thank you. I had a question about a point in Dr. Shikaki's most recent poll that has to do with Palestinian beliefs about how the Trump plan is actually being perceived by Israelis. And in it, it said by 70% of Palestinians believe that a majority of Israeli Jews support the American plan, while 23% think that a Jewish majority is opposed to it. So I really had two questions about that, and maybe both of you can talk about this. One, is that true? And two, if it isn't, why is there this kind of disconnect? Why is there this perception? And is there anything to be done to kind of mitigate?
Well, on the Palestinian side, obviously, the reason that Palestinians think that a majority of Israelis is because they think this is a very bad deal for the Palestinians, and it's a very good deal for the Israelis. Israelis would be stupid not to support it. That is how the rationale goes. Now, this is not based on Palestinians actually getting to know what Israelis actually think about it. It is more of sort of their own rational calculations. Would Israelis support an offer to annex Palestinian territories? Would Israelis accept a plan that gives them full security control over the Palestinians, etc.? So for Palestinians, of course, Israelis would support these things. Now, some Israelis, or many Israelis, might not. We have not seen a survey. We have not done a survey simultaneously at that time among Israelis. So we don't know what was the Israeli perception at that time. We know that a majority of Israelis supported the Trump plan, but it wasn't 70% support. Perhaps Tamar can shed more light about it if she asked about this in the last survey.
We asked about it when the plan was put on the table, and we saw that both the left and the right were not happy and were happy, but for opposite reasons. The right was happy about the potential of some annexation and also the gifts that Trump was about to give to Israel in return for its participation in these negotiations. The left was happy about the very possibility of getting back to the table, but of course was very unhappy about the annexation. So we had about 50%, which was composed of the happy and unhappy from one side and the happy and unhappy from the other side. No one was really, really thrilled with the option put on the table. We are going to ask this question about support we don't call it here annexation. It's a semantic issue. The leaders here talk about the putting the sovereignty of Israel over land. So we are going to ask this question on Thursday, and I'll have fresh data on that.
Thank you.
We had a couple questions that came in regard to the health systems and the collaboration. I don't know if it reflects on the poll or if you have anything to add to it. What are the health professionals' relationship and how do those affect the public opinion?
On the Israeli side?
On both sides, because it's a bunch of questions that came in on the same subject. So if both of you can relate to it, and I'm guessing this will be our last question.
Okay, Khalil.
Well, on the Palestinian side, there has been a lot of exchange of information. The health officials from both sides have been meeting extensively to see what can be done. In all the tests regarding Gaza were done in Israeli labs, not Palestinian labs. So, and that was done by Israel. Israel also facilitated the shipment of material to Gaza. But the single most important, I believe, development that in Israeli-Palestinian cooperation had to do with the arrangement for Palestinian laborers. Israelis wanted laborers to continue to work in Israel. Palestinians too wanted them to work, but having to cross the border and come back every single day had a great deal of risks for the families of the laborers and for their neighbors and so on. And indeed, more than 70% of the cases are for laborers or their family members. And so the arrangement was Israel agreed to do something that it had not done in a very, very long time, and that is to allow laborers to stay in Israel. So about 45,000 laborers were able to stay in Israel, although some have returned at times and created a lot of problems. In some cases where a large number of people wanted to return, Israeli and Palestinian security services collaborated in allowing these people to come in buses together at one checkpoint where they were received by the Palestinian security services and taken, all of them, to a place where they were tested before they were sent home. So this kind of cooperation is something that, although on health matters, one would imagine people would be supportive, but we certainly did not expect to see that kind of support at a time when Israeli-Palestinian relations have reached a very, very low point.
Tamar, anything to add to that?
No, but only to note that large quantities of medical supplies were given by Israel, not only to Gaza, but to the West Bank. I have letters of Palestinian officials asking for certain masks and ventilators, and some of it was given to them by Israelis. But the accusations made by Palestinians on the international media that because of Israel, these people were infected, resonated very badly with the Israelis, and the willingness to go on with this kind of cooperation went down significantly.
All right. We have many more questions. Many want to hear a hopeful angle about what would lead us to a positive change and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, we have to finish this talk, but we will have more opportunities to such debriefs. I want to thank everyone that participated, and on behalf of us at the JCRC of New York, I want to thank Shikaki and Tamar Hermann for their participation, and Sophia McGee and Saru at Queens College for their co-hosting and supporting this program. We look forward to seeing you in more events such as this one in the near future. And we thank you for participating, and we hope that us, the JCRC, can serve as a resource to you all. As I mentioned at the opening, today's call is part of a series of events and talks about Israeli and Palestinians during these times, and more to come in the near future. Thank you again, everyone. Be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.